Uh, One of them was Shelton Felton, who played football at Troy University. He's from Cordell, Georgia. He played defensive line.
I was thinking that name sounded familiar.
Yeah, and he had previously coached at the University of Akron. He was a quality control analyst in 2018 at Tennessee, or at the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. He's also been at University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, but he was fired for what they call 4 calls, and Brian Niedermeyer.
Yeah, he played at Alabama.
And they consider him like one of the top recruiters in the country, and I believe he was the recruiter of the year in 247, recruiting 247 and ESPN about a year ago, recruiter of the year. So, who knows what's going on? My dad told me, don't believe me.
Pruitt's got a local connection here, so we definitely
Sure.
You know, I'm very proud of what Jeremy accomplished at Alabama. You know, didn't prove it as a head coach at Tennessee, but that was his first head coaching job, and you know, he's got a job at the University of Alabama. I think anytime he ever wants one again with Saban. But we also, Derek Kingsley, of course, played at Troy. The Felton kid played at Troy. I want to say one of the other guys, he was a coach at Foley, and he was at Troy. I want to say he got on the Tennessee staff as well.
Yeah, I'm not.
He was a former head coach. So there's a lot of connections up there that we know.
Yeah, and I've got a big long list of possible replacements for Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee. I've got it on my list somewhere. It's a long.
Hugh Freeze is the name everybody's going to be talking about.
Yeah.
The Liberty coach, of course, former Ole Miss coach, of course, Arkansas State, but he got in NCAA sanction issues at Ole Miss, and of course he had some off-the-field personal issues as well. And you know, you're coming into a program that's got some NCAA recruiting violations. Possibly, I don't see how in the world they could hire for you. Do you?
Nope. They got who's the coach at Bill Napier? His name came up. Of course, Gus Malzahn's name came up.
He's a guy that I would think that they will definitely consider highly. You know, former Alabama assistant, former Clemson assistant, has done an unbelievable job.
Of course.
Around Lafayette.
Yeah, Kevin Steele, his name's at the top of the list too. You know, because he played at Tennessee.
They hired him as a defensive assistant. I mean, surely he wouldn't have taken that job if he would, known that there would be a position coming available as an interim head coach. So it's almost like Pruitt knew the writing was on the wall. We're going to bring Steele in. You know, we're pretty much going to have to let you go. And Steele's got a chance to be the head coach at 62 years old.
He's been the interim coach for 2 major programs, all within about a 20-day span, at Auburn and then at now at Tennessee.
Yeah, he definitely didn't have Auburn looking very good in that bowl game. That's a sign of him getting players ready to play and coaching them up. I don't know, but maybe those guys kind of shut it down. So.
Well, here's some other names. Tom Herman, who was at Texas, his name is on the list that I read. I believe this was on CBS Sports.
But basically, your list is going to be whoever Jimmy Sexton, the super agent, who's under him. I guarantee you might hear Neil Brown's name at West Virginia.
Could do it. Bill O'Brien, his name is on the list. Of course, has that deal been finalized yet, Mike, with him being the offensive?
Yeah, I don't think it's been finalized yet. You know, there's also rumors that Pete Golden, the Alabama defense coordinator, might go to Texas as defense coordinator. And I guarantee you, Alabama fans would be jumping up and down if they could get Pruitt back as defense coordinator if Golden was to leave.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to see. And then Charlie Strong, who's an analyst on Alabama staff, they're saying he's going to go to Urban to the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, he's been hired as the linebackers coach.
Yeah, so it'll be really interesting to see what happens here. Again, but I don't know, can Pruitt coach is the question. Is he going to be under some NCAA restrictions as far as recruiting and coaching? I don't know how that's going to work.
Exactly. Well, another name, Tony Elliott, the Clemson offensive coordinator, his name was on the list, along with Jamie Chadwell at Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
Of course, you've already mentioned Hugh Freeze, and I mentioned Gus Malzahn. He was on the list, and the Bill Napier at Louisiana. So who knows what's going to happen? But the athletic director, the way I heard mentioned they're going to try to hire that person first, so he or she can be on in the process of hiring the new head coach. And but Tennessee is in a spiral, and I think it's going to take a while for them to come out of this. But I
mean, it'd be interesting to see. I'm trying to think of some other coaches that we're not really mentioning right now. That I mean, Mario Cristobal just got a big contract extension in Oregon. He was a hot name for the Auburn job. Sometimes I wonder if Clay Helton would want to leave USC and get back to the Southeast. He's an Auburn grad.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a bad coach. Then you got all these coaches in the pros that might be interested in a Tennessee job as well.
I always thought
not head coaches, but maybe coordinators and stuff that are looking for an SEC job. The East, I'd much rather coach in the East than coach in the West.
Well, although he does not have coaching experience per se, what if they hired Peyton Manning to get the program?
Man, Peyton Manning's kind of Hollywood now. He's so many commercials, does Saturday Night Live, and he's got so much money, and I don't see him wanting to fool around with coaching a bunch of young kids and going out and recruiting and going out and talking to alumni groups and stuff like that. I don't see it. Maybe when he gets a little older, maybe he might consider something like that. But I think he's enjoying too much of just retirement.
Well,
as a good life.
As it all relates to Tennessee, Big Cat Williams is transferring to Tennessee, and I think his high school coach might be there, and the big offensive tackle.
If there's any kind of NCAA sanctions coming down, I guarantee Steele will be the coach. I just got a feeling they won't go out and get anybody. Well, they're going to have a hard time trying to get anybody if there's going to be NCAA sanctions involved.
Well, that's what Bill O'Brien did at Penn State. He knew it was coming. And the big offensive lineman, we talked briefly about it. His last name's Morris. He's transferring. He entered the transfer portal from Tennessee, but he is going to Oklahoma to play for the Sooners of Oklahoma. And Miami's picking up players left and right too. So it's going to be interesting to see.
I wonder if you see an Urban Meyer get back into coaching. He had some health issues, and would you ever think of a guy like Mark Richt? He's really successful in the East at Georgia. Of course, he I think had a mild heart attack when he was coaching at Miami. I don't know if his health is an issue, but I wonder if he would throw his name in at the Tennessee job if he wanted to get back into coaching. He wouldn't be a horrible hire by any means.
I'm not sure about that, but they're looking for. I didn't see the press conference by the president or the chancellor. And but level 1 and level 2 sanctions, it could be some probationary period coming from the NCAA. But the article I read, the NCAA is so wrapped up in this basketball investigation through multiple schools that they're short-staffed and short-handed when it comes to. I got my first transfer. Let's see if I can do this, Mike.
Is that Bill Rice calling in?
It should be. Good morning. You're on Today in L.A.
Well, good morning. This is Bill Rice calling from the remote studio on South Hillcrest Boulevard.
All right, hold on. Let me see if I can do this transfer.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Got that. Do I have both of you?
You got me. You got Bill.
Mike?
You got me.
Whoo! I did it. Well, welcome, Bill. Bill's calling from where? Hillcrest Boulevard?
Well, so somewhere in Hillcrest.
All right. Well good morning.
Tell Mike Amos that we're thinking about this morning that it's not a brick house. He'll know what's up.
That's his big thing in life. Did you grow up in a brick house or a block house or a wood house?
Yeah. Well, Bill,
that describes your wealth. Apparently, what's your opinion, Bill? On we've been talking about Jeremy Pruitt, about him getting fired at Tennessee.
Man, I just feel bad for the family. I'd be less than truthful if I said I am crying too much for Tennessee, because I still think this is some karma from Tennessee in the Phil Fulmer era when they were intent on throwing Alabama under the bus, and they were doing stuff that on their own that I thought was sneaky back then. You remember the grade change controversy? You were probably too young. They
all that.
One year Tennessee had 11 players who had their final grades changed, make them eligible to play. There was some faculty member that raised a ruckus about that, but nothing ever happened because of it. So Tennessee's going through a rough time, man. It's I don't know. It is.
Well, they've already said that Kevin Steele is the interim coach. So what do you think? Do you think if they have NCAA sanctions coming down, you make Steele your head coach and see what he can do?
I heard Feinbaum talking about. Yeah, that maybe it might be a scenario where you just have a one-year coach while they, let everything die down and get more facts. And but I'll be a contrarian. I still say that I look at tradition, and Tennessee is at one point going to be a good job again. You got too big a fan base and too much tradition. So if I was a coach and they gave me a 6 or 7 year contract to get through probation, I would jump at it, but that might not happen.
Yeah, not only did he get dismissed, they dismissed 9 others. 2 position coaches. You had.
What about Derek Ainsley?
No,
His name's on the list.
His name was not on the list.
But was he was dismissed, I assume, though. No.
There were 9. There were 2 coaches, Bill Niedermeyer and Brian Niedermeyer, Shelton Felton, and the rest were either part of the recruiting staff or director of player personnel and his assistant, and like an analyst. There were like a total of 9 people. 4 of them were ladies.
So Derek Hensley is still getting paid, in other words.
Yes.
He's still on staff.
Yeah,
Good.
yes, he's still on staff.
Yeah, they owed Pruitt $12 million, but I don't believe he'll get it because of the.
Well, his lawyer came out right off the bat.
Was he fired with calls or without calls?
Well, that he's going to be officially fired today, I believe, at 5 p.m. But his lawyer, whoever he hired, has come out and said this is a ploy by the university to shy away from the financial responsibility they have of my client. Words to that effect. So they're thinking they're just wanting not to pay him, and but after the investigation, who knows what's going to happen. But we hope.
Well, another part of this that hadn't gotten much attention, but I picked up on it, is Tennessee's had financial issues over the last 5 or 10 years. They've been in the red, I believe, in most of those years. They've got this huge stadium that they can't sell out, and
it's the 5th largest in the country.
Yeah, so they've got financial issues that you wouldn't think Tennessee would have. So a $12 million buyout to them might be a big deal, although you would think Tennessee could find some big wealthy booster that would pay that off. But that's a lot of money, $12 million. For the Pruitt family, I hope he gets at least some of it.
Well,
he's a guy that should be a multi-millionaire. Over $1 million a year as a coordinator. And then in Tennessee, I think he made around 4.5.
Yeah,
he should have some money, I would hope.
Yeah, he should have some squirreled away to last him a couple of years, that's for sure. But if there's a show calls issue, that means he cannot coach in college.
Power 5.
Unless he can argue that he can be. So if he wanted to get back into coaching, that just leaves open the possibility of coaching in the NFL.
Yeah, that's what I was asking earlier. I was wondering if there would be a situation, because if Pete Golding goes to Texas, like they're talking about in Tuscaloosa, with Sarkisian become defense coordinator, then all of a sudden now the defense coordinator job comes open, and everybody in Tuscaloosa and Saban would love to have Pruitt back. He's a great defense coordinator. I don't know what's going to happen there.
Well, now, with this stigma attached to him, I don't know. It's
Well, that's what's kind of strange about all this, because he was considered the top recruiter in the country for several years at Alabama. He's an unbelievable recruiter, so it's kind of strange that this would come about all of a sudden. But Georgia apparently is involved in this. It's on a player that was going basically, deciding to sign with Tennessee or Georgia, and he ended up signing with Georgia and Kirby Smart. So I don't know if Georgia's going to be involved or what.
It's big news for the Vols. I think Alabama has beaten Tennessee
14 straight.
15 out of the last 16 years. You just talk about how things can change, and you think, oh, this will just be a couple of bad down years, but before you know it, it turns into 2 decades. It's amazing.
I'm sure.
I was actually at the last game in Knoxville when Tennessee beat Alabama. Eric Ames was the quarterback, big 6'6" guy, and John Parker Wilson was Alabama's quarterback. Dad and I went up to that game, and Alabama was leading pretty much throughout. Tennessee came back and won the game, but that's the last time that Tennessee beat Alabama 14 years ago, or 15 years ago.
Yeah, so that could have been 16 wins in a row, except I remember that game too. And then I remember Mike Shula beat Tennessee in this next to last year, I think, pretty convincingly. So Tennessee, it is just it's stunning to me, just everything that's happened to them. It's almost equivalent to Nebraska, Florida State, Miami. Just all these blue blood programs that fall upon hard times, and then they just can't get out of it.
Yeah, Nebraska can't get out of it. Southern Cal really is not out of it.
Want to mention that I was looking on Facebook last night, and I saw some really sad news that Raymond Leffert, our dear friend of our show, is in the hospital in Pensacola with some medical issues. Don't really know much more than that, but everybody is praying for Raymond Leffert.
Yeah, I got it.
Friend of my family, a great friend to the city of Troy, and of course was on our show not too long ago. So we're just hoping and praying that Raymond will be okay, and don't really know any more details other than what I'm seeing on Facebook.
Yeah, I texted little Raymond this morning. He texted me back, said it feels like his daddy's going to be okay, and that's about all he said. And but that he said that he looks like he's going to be okay. When I drove by yesterday, I believe it was, I saw him cutting hair. I needed to stop, but our prayers are for him and others who are struggling, that might be struggling. But another big news out of Troy University, Cornelius Williams will be the new wide receivers coach at Auburn University.
Yeah, that is a huge promotion for him. I mean, you're talking about a huge pay raise. You probably go from making $115,000 at Troy to probably making $330,000, maybe $350,000 at Auburn.
He was an outstanding player at Hoover, but he was a four-year starter at Troy University. He's coached at South Alabama, Murray State, Jacksonville State, North Alabama, UAB. Now he's going to be the wide receivers coach at Auburn University. So that's good news for him. And
that's a hire that Lindsey, of course, and Cornelius go way back from the Hoover days, and the connection there at Auburn is interesting with Brian Hartson. I wouldn't think there would have been any relationship other than Boise did play Troy twice, and he was at Troy at the time. I don't know if they had met each other before or what, but that is a huge, huge career move for Cornelius. He coached at South Alabama under Clark, then he coached at UAB under Clark, and then when UAB lost their program, he came back to Troy. But congratulations to him and his family. That's 2 Troy connections we have up there now, Cornelius Williams and Zach Epledge.
That's right. And, didn't Tracy Rocker coach here at one time?
Yeah, Tracy Rocker.
Yeah, Tracy Rocker coached.
Amazing.
It's like, man, they're forming probably one of the best staffs in the Southeastern Conference. And Alabama, I believe, has one coach.
Offense coordinator to replace and Ryan Pugh, and then they've got Cornelius Williams to replace the wide receiver. So they've got a couple of coaching spots on that offensive staff.
Yeah,
what I keep saying is, mamas, let your children play football. You know, maybe they'll make a little money in the NFL, maybe they won't. But if they can get into Division I coaching and stay in it for about 20 years, they're going to make a lot of money.
I would be a special teams coordinator.
Have y'all seen what's going on at Gulf Shores Hospital?
Yes.
Yes. They've hired a staff at Gulf Shores Hospital that would probably be one of the top staffs in the Sun Belt Conference. They got Mark Huspa, the former Lafayette coach that won, I think, 4 straight bowl games and was successful at UNA. He's your new head coach. Kenny Eddingfield, the former Troy University offensive coordinator, former Troy player, then went to South Alabama, became offensive coordinator, is the new offensive coordinator at Gulf Shores Hospital. And the new defensive coordinator is a guy who's been a defensive coordinator at probably 5 Power 5 schools, Troy, 2 different stops, and just lost his job at West Virginia. But Vic Koenig is the defensive coordinator at Gulf Shores Hospital. Have you ever in your life heard of a coaching staff like this?
No.
And I imagine kids will flock to go play for those guys. And I mean, they'll do it the right way too. I mean, I hope KD, you know, that's Kenny's son KD. I don't know exactly where he'll land, but maybe he can land, you know, somewhere on that staff as well. But I mean, I'm so proud for Kenny and Miss Pam.
I guess they love the beach. They have homes in Gulf Shores or Orange Beach, and then they must be trying to get out of retirement. Wouldn't that be the only reason you make that move?
That would be smart. That would be.
Those are all good reasons.
All right, now listen to this. Guess who's coming to Houston Academy?
Oh yeah, I read that.
Don Jacobs. He's retiring as of 1 February in Scottsboro, his hometown school. Played at Alabama, and he's going on as the offensive coordinator at Houston Academy.
Yeah.
One thing I know about Don Jacobs too, he loves to play golf. So Dothan must have a lot of good golf courses he wants to play.
Yeah. Who knows? Who's going to fill our shoes at Charles Simpson? Willie Nelson. Who's going to fill those shoes? But
well, we talked about that before. I mean, it's a huge hire. You know, my postulate is your school system, your town goes as your school system goes, and then your schools really go as your sports programs go. It's arguably the most important hire is the football coach and athletic director. So let's hope they choose wisely. I'm sure they will.
Well, another news in Alabama.
Can Denise Jones, the great women's ladies basketball coach, can she coach football?
Probably could. Probably could. Well, the Alabama signee JaQuincy McKinstry Kool-Aid is the 2020 Mr. Football for the state of Alabama. Bill Rice named the 2 Pike County Bulldogs who were named Mr. Football years ago.
I read the same article, so I actually know that. It's Chris Nixon and Nuco Coleman, Stephen Nuco Coleman.
That is correct. That is correct. And I believe the only other school with 2 is Pinson Valley. You know, Bo Nix won it a couple of years ago, but it started in 1983 with that award, I believe, is what I printed off. But congratulations to him, and it's nice to know. You know, that's pretty rare for a small school to have 2 Mr. Footballs. And but congratulations.
What Chris Nixon is doing, you know, he went to Vanderbilt and was the starter for a while and played a whole lot. Got a great education at Vanderbilt. You know, that education alone is probably worth $250,000. Heck, I think he would have been a great coach because a smart kid. But I remember when he was recruited, it was Shula was the coach. And they wanted to offer him a scholarship, but they wanted him to play safety, and he wanted to play quarterback.
Actually, he might have been playing at the pros if they play safety in college.
So at first I said, no, Shula's wrong. I think Nixon can be a quarterback. I remember thinking that and saying that at the time. but in retrospect, Shula might have been right, because he probably would have been a great safety, and he might have had a chance in the pros if he
Yeah, Coach at Vanderbilt was not a very good coach when Nixon was there. I think it was Buddy Johnson. He was in at Furman and, stepped into the SEC. And I think maybe 1 year they went to a bowl game with Johnson.
Yeah, he was the backup for Coulter, who was, isn't that his name, that was played in the pros for a long
Ian
time?
Coulter? Ian Coulter, maybe?
No, Jay
Coulter. Jay Coulter.
Not Coulter, Cutler. Jay Cutler.
And then Stephen Nuco Coleman, he was one of the most dynamic players anywhere. Man, he is a legend in Pike County.
Coleman tried to go play for, I guess, Eddie Robinson in Grambling. That's where he originally signed to go play. Then I guess he ended up in junior colleges and ended up in Troy for 2 years.
Yeah, his wife's a school teacher at Troy Elementary School, a wonderful. Yolanda is a super duper teacher. But that JaQuincy McKinstry, Mr. Kool-Aid, he wants to play both basketball and football at Alabama. Do you think?
Great basketball game tonight, Alabama LSU. I think Alabama travels to Baton Rouge. Alabama's undefeated, beat Arkansas by 32 over the weekend. Just phenomenal start for Nate Oates.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break, and we want to thank Premier Chrysler, Dodge, and Jeep Ram of Troy, located on US 231 here in Troy, Alabama. Their phone number is 334-403-4646. And, of course, Troy Bank and Trust, the only bank you'll ever need. It has about 12 or 13 locations. And we'll be back in just a few minutes after this commercial break.
Our history is woven with the stories of those we serve. At Max, we've been a good community partner for 65 years. Max is dedicated to providing dependable financial services and to supporting our communities. We volunteer our time and share our resources. As a credit union, we've returned millions of dollars back to our members, local nonprofits, and small businesses. Max is honored to be a part of your story. We look forward to serving you for years to come.
Hi, Sandy. I'm right here. Come on in.
Daddy, I'm right here. Hello, Miss Mary. I'm right here. I'm right here.
Since 1969, we've been right here because at Troy Regional Medical Center, we take these words to heart.
I'm right here. Thank you.
Remarkable people, remarkable care.
Trojan Auto Parts of Troy, home of Napa Know-How. Stop by and see owners Mike and Melissa Kilcrease and their Napa Know-How team with over 100 years of combined experience. We're the only locally owned parts store in Pike County, and we're fully stocked and ready to serve you. We pride ourselves on being your go-to parts store, not only for the simple items, but we specialize in those hard-to-find items as well. Trojan Auto Parts, the right part at the right price at the right time. Napa, a name you've trusted here in Troy since 1945.
Napa Know-How. At the Piggly Wiggly, we proudly support our local farmers and bring you the best they have to offer, all at cost plus 10%. When you shop local, you reinvest in your community. Remember, buy local, shop local. Piggly Wiggly, local since forever.
Our history is woven with the story.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back on Today in L.A. I'm Forrest Lee, and on the phone with me we have Michael Amos calling from Great Beach, Florida, and Bill Rice, who's calling on from the other side of Troy, Alabama. Welcome, guys. We're back live.
Yeah, I want to send a personal thank you to Mr. Kilcrease at Napa, our Napa dealer in Troy. I was driving from the beach back to Troy yesterday for Miss Cheryl Becerra's funeral, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the Becerra family. I miss Miss Cheryl terribly. She pretty much raised me in that house, and Neil and I were best of friends, and want to, everybody out there continue to pray for, Mickey, Dr. Mickey, and Mary Lee, and Bobby, and Michael, and Neil, and his wife Curry, and all their kids as well. Touching ceremony yesterday at Green Hills, and I would say probably 300 people there at the graveside service, and Sheila Jackson sang, and of course she was wonderful as it plays, and saw pretty much everybody I grew up with and people from all over, Troy and the surrounding areas, and just want to tell everybody that COVID is real. It doesn't affect everybody, but, she was the picture of health, Cheryl Shera, and I still am just in shock that we lost her to COVID, but we've lost a lot of people in Troy. Wear your mask, wash your hands, do the right things, because it is definitely real. I saw it yesterday, and I still can't believe it.
I was looking yesterday at the number of cases and hospitalizations in Alabama. I was charting them, by day. You can see the number of cases that the Alabama Department of Public Health plots, and it was just really eye-opening to see the huge leap that occurred, really starting in November. We're far ahead of where we've ever been, and all of COVID as far as the number of cases, the number of hospitalizations. It's just, but I think the light at the end of the tunnel is if we can just hang on. I just got a strong suspicion that this is a seasonal spike. The November, December, January are going to be the worst, and then February probably. If we can make it to March, I think it'll, and then more and more people are getting the vaccine, maybe things will start getting better.
Yeah, we got to have people get the vaccine. I was watching the local news here at the beach last night, and they had a drive-up vaccine operation where people 65 and older could just drive in and get the shot. So we need more places like that around.
Well, we were fortunate. I ate at Bird Drugs yesterday morning in Melton. He told us that they were giving vaccines starting yesterday at Bird Drugs, the Moderna vaccine.
You got to sign up for it and call in, same thing at the health department. So it's starting to increase.
She said that they had 300 people already signed up at Bird Drugs.
I saw Joe Watson yesterday, and he's recovering from the same surgery that Dad had. So he was at the funeral.
Oh, good. So if your dad can just hang in there, it'll get better. I know he's had a rough couple of days, but
yeah, I was mentioning yesterday. I wanted to thank Mike Kilcrease. I was driving from the beach back to Troy, and I passed Sampson on my car, and I'm driving, not thinking really much of anything. There's nobody in front of me, nobody behind me, and all of a sudden a gigantic wooden log comes flying out into the road from some house out in the middle of nowhere, and I drove over it thinking that you might have messed my line up. I stop at a gas station closer to Elba and get out of my car and pass my bumpers off, and I was in shock and of course upset because it was my wife's car, and I was just like, oh great,
you've done it now. You should have just drove over to Dodge, Premier Dodge.
I called Jason, but anyway, I got to Troy, and I had to go to the funeral like I mentioned, and then I went and saw Mom and Dad. Mom and Dad, were upset, trying to figure out what we needed to do so I could drive it back to the beach. Went and saw Mike Kilcrease at the Napa place, and he had some Gorilla Tape, and we taped up the bumper really good. And I got back on the road yesterday and left Troy and got back to the beach before dark. And I'm going to have to get it fixed, take it to a body shop, but he really helped me out, helped me look at the car and make sure it was safe. So I want to appreciate Mike Kilcrease and Napa yesterday.
Yeah, what I like about them, you can drive up and they can change your windshield wiper blades just like that. Hey, some local news. If you like getting in a swimming pool, on the Saturday, January the 30th, the Habitat for Humanity here in Troy, Alabama and Pike County are hosting their second annual Polar Bear Plunge. That will be held Saturday, January the 30th at 9 a.m. at the Troy Rec Department located on 601 Enzer Road. It will be in the outdoor pool, and I plunged last year. I'm hoping to plunge again this year. I had to work out my work schedule at the Brundage Country Club. But for more information, call Diana Lee at Troy Bank and Trust, the downtown location, or look on their Facebook site for Habitat for Humanity, or just type in the Polar Bear Plunge, Troy, Alabama, and there's links that you can go to register for it. Corporate sponsors can also give donations for this worthy cause to help build houses for those in need here in Pike County and the surrounding area. So the Polar Bear Plunge, let's do it. So,
that is a cool fundraiser.
It is cool.
Neat, the fundraisers people come up with.
It's breathtaking. Trust me.
I see a lot of snowbirders. Snowbirds come down here and they swim in this weather we're in right now, and I think the water's 55 degrees, so pretty common down here at the beach.
Hey, another thing, let's talk about the Senior Bowl. It's going to be held Saturday, January the 30th in Mobile at their new stadium. It's the Reese's Senior Bowl. You cannot find tickets to that bowl. You cannot go to a practice. I went on StubHub and Vivid Seats. It says no tickets are available at this time. And you can watch it on the National Football League Network, I believe, is where you can pick it up. And, you know.
Yeah, Devontae Smith's going to play in it.
I saw that.
Well, let's talk about that. Well, I mean, don't you think that's kind of an unnecessary risk for Devontae? You think he'll really play? I mean, if there's one player that has nothing to prove, it's Devontae Smith. I wonder if he's just
maybe he's just going down for the interviews. You think?
I'm not sure.
So I don't want to. Yeah. After all he's done this year, I'd hate to see him have any injury and practice for that ball game.
He's got a broken finger. Surely that hadn't recovered yet.
Yeah. It's probably. But some other players in Alabama, at South Alabama, when your dad and I went to the Troy, South Alabama game, Michael, Riley Cole, their linebacker, will be playing in it. Auburn.
You know Riley Cole played at Aniana against Carl Clemson in that state championship game.
And Don Jacobs was the head coach.
Yeah, he's been a player. He originally signed with Alabama, and then I think he transferred to South Alabama, got hurt, got a medical red shirt. Mm-hmm. I think he just finished his 6th year this year.
Okay, and Auburn's KJ Britt will be playing at linebacker. UAB has Austin Watkins. Alabama, their long snapper Thomas Fletcher is on the roster. Alex Leatherwood, the offensive tackle. Well, Landon Dickerson is also on the roster, and Deontay Brown as a lineman. So those are the connections here in the state of Alabama.
I read an article about Dickerson. This is crazy to say, but he told the coaches that he could have played in that national championship game, wanted to play. That he felt healthy enough after the injury, because they wear those braces.
Right.
And apparently he had been asking for weeks after the surgery to get in there and play. And of course they put him in when there was going to be no contact. They hit a knee, but isn't that amazing how tough that guy is?
There have been players that played with torn ligaments. You remember probably 15, 20 years ago there was an Alabama punter that had a knee injury, and he kept punting. I mean, he was in terrible pain. It's just like every time he kicked, it hurt his knee, but he kept playing. That's a little different than a position player. But Landon Dickerson is, I counted him up, Forrest and Michael, that Alabama has 9 players, if you can believe it, that have at least a chance to go in the first round of the NFL draft. And of course, all 9 won't go, but there are 9 that at least have an outside chance that they could go. And Landon Dickerson would be one of them. Deontay Brown is probably a long shot, but some people have said he might be a first round pick. Leatherwood. But I think the draft gurus, they have Alabama penciled in as probably having at least 6 first-round NFL draft choices this year.
Well,
you got to think locks would be Waddle, Smith, Leatherwood, probably Mac Jones for sure. Now, I mean, I'm seeing him as high as number 20 in some, and then you got to think between Najee and then Barmore, the unbelievable defensive tackle.
Patrick Surtain.
Surtain. Yeah.
That's your lock.
I think 6 for sure.
How many did LSU have last year?
I think they had 5 or 6 in the first round. I'll have to go back and look.
Well, amazing. Then you had the. I think Alabama had 4 last year, and then had 1 more in the second round, and most of those were in the 2017 recruiting class, which has to be the best recruiting class in Alabama history and maybe college football history. If you just count up the number of future first round and second round NFL draft picks, I think if you look at that, they probably signed 25 players, and it'll end up being, at least 9 of the class ended up going in the NFL first round.
Yeah. Joshua McMillan's going to go to he's entering the National Football League draft. He will not be coming back.
He played 6 years. I think he was done.
Yeah. But Phil Mathis is coming back, the redshirt junior defensive lineman. Chris Owens, the redshirt senior, he's coming back. And Alec Cahoe, the linebacker. I may not be pronouncing that correctly, but he's Cahoe. He's coming back.
And Dylan Moses declared for the draft.
Yes,
which
Dylan Moses.
Somewhat surprising for me because he looks like a player that needs 1 more year to recover from that knee injury. Sometimes it just takes players 2 years to get back to where they were. I remember when Hightower played at Alabama, he had a bad knee injury, and he played the next year, but he wasn't the same player. But he came back this next year, and he was back to the old Hightower.
Yeah, Justin Fields declared for Ohio State. So did Trey Sermon declared. Then their wide receiver, he's coming back. Their big fast wide or their fast wide receiver. Yeah, he's coming back.
LSU had 5 in the first round last year. They had Joe Burrow, Chasen, their linebacker, Justin Jefferson, Patrick Queen, and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire with the Chiefs, and all those guys had good years with pros.
Yeah, and their wide receiver Jamar Chase is probably in the top 5 or 6.
Yeah, what do you think about that? I mean, you think these NFL coaches and personnel, directors, and owners care that these guys sat out and decided not to play? Do you think that's going to affect their draft stock?
I don't know. If they've kept their nose clean, I think they'll draft them. The ones I would be leery of are the ones who quit mid-season.
Yeah.
But the ones who opted out early because of COVID and because of the uncertainty, I can see that. Them still drafting them.
Thinking of the day, Auburn honors all their Heisman Trophy winners with statues outside the stadium. When are we going to have a Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, and a Vontae Smith statue outside Bryant Denny?
Never. It'll be Alabama's team in national championships. They're not going to glorify individual awards, but
they're just going to have their hand and footprints at Bryant Denny or Denny Jones. That's what
they were captains. Did you know this year that Alabama, the players vote on captains? Did you notice that there were 4 captains, and all 4 of them were on the offense? There were no defensive players that were captains.
Who were they? Dickerson,
Leatherwood, Mac Jones, and Devontae Smith.
Wow.
The 4 captains.
Yeah, somebody made a great point that they did the coin toss where they could only send 1 guy out for
They said Dickerson. Yeah.
And then they're going to be playing a game against each other for the next 60 minutes. That made no sense at all.
Yeah, the 3 linebackers. There's 3 linebackers at Ohio State that are coming out. They're on the Senior Bowl roster, but they look slow. They're big, but they did not look Southeastern Conference fast. And you could tell a couple of times they took the wrong angle on Najee Harris and some other plays that I said, but they'll find a spot in the National Football League.
I tell you what, they had Ezekiel Elliott. They beat us in the playoffs. Whenever Meyer was there, they looked fast. Jeez Louise, Alabama couldn't tackle them to save his life.
Ohio State was ready to play. I still think Alabama didn't know how good Ohio State was and might not have had their A game come in ready to go.
I think he'll go down as Lane Kiffin's greatest coaching job of all time. He made Blake Sims almost look like an All-American, a guy that had been like a backup running back / quarterback / receiver. I mean, Blake Sims put up phenomenal numbers that year.
Mm-hmm. National Football League, we might want to recap that from this weekend. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 30. The New Orleans Saints, 20. Could be Drew Brees' last game. What do you think, guys?
Well, if it is, I enjoyed watching him. He was a great player. I've been to New Orleans a couple of times, and boy, everywhere you go, you see a cool Drew Brees shirt. People, I like the way he carries himself, and he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's 41 years old. He's had a great year. He ought to be one of the richest people in America. If he wants to come back, he can come back, but.
I know he and his wife have given to hurricane relief, COVID relief, a bunch of money.
It was huge after Katrina. And, New Orleans people love him. People down there on the coast love him. There's so many New Orleans transplants. He married a girl actually from Duke, so he actually does some stuff up Birmingham from time to time. But I mean, he was a guy that was barely 6 foot at that. But he's just lost his arm strength. You know, I mean, he just can't throw the ball downfield anymore. I watched both games when they beat Tampa Bay this year, because we get every Saints game down here. They carry them nonstop, and they dominated Tampa Bay. And then of course, they play them in the playoffs, and Brady's Brady. But they had 4 turnovers, and 4 turnovers, you can't beat anybody. Yeah.
And Tampa Bay travels to Green Bay to play Aaron Rodgers. Green Bay defeated the Rams 32-18. So you've got those. Is he 38? Rodgers somewhere in there, 37, 38. So it's gonna be.
You got Green Bay. The weather's supposed to be 22 and snowing for Tampa Bay coming up there. That's gonna be an interesting game.
Yeah, that might be a little much for boys from Florida to overcome.
Brady's used to the cold, though. He played New England all those years. Local connection, though. Steve McClendon out of Ozark. Of course, he was playing for the Jets. Ended up, I guess, getting picked up by Tampa Bay. He's got a chance to get to a Super Bowl. And then Mario Addison, one of the lead sack guys for the Buffalo Bills, played at Troy from Birmingham.
Yeah,
got 2 Troy guys still with a chance to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Bills defeated the Ravens 17-13, and the Chiefs hung on to beat the Browns 22-17. So it'll be on Sunday at 3:05. The Bucks will play at the Packers at 3:05 on Fox, and Sunday evening at 6:40 it'll be the Buffalo Bills at the Chiefs on CBS. But Patrick Mahomes is under concussion protocol, and we'll see what his status will be for this Sunday. But then the matchup in the Super Bowl, which will take place 2 weeks later, is going to be the 24 or 25-year-old quarterback versus the 40-year-old quarterbacks. One of the two. So that'll make for an interesting storyline.
I'll tell you, Aaron Rodgers is pretty tough to beat, at Lambeau Field. That's going to be really tough for Brady. But one thing about, Tampa Bay, if you watch it, they have a really fast, physical defense. They got a lot of former SEC guys on there, and it's going to be interesting to see if they put pressure on Rodgers. I think that's going to be a great game, actually. I can't wait to watch it.
And, I was looking, did TJ Yeldon play any for the Bills? Because, they've got a running back that's out, and they're just throwing the ball most of the time.
I was traveling. I was on the road. I didn't get to watch a whole lot of that game.
Well, I checked the box score, and he had 2 carries for 4 yards, so he played.
Yeah.
TJ, we forget about TJ, all the great running backs that came through Alabama. TJ Yeldon's one of them.
Once these guys made the money, TJ was really pretty good for Jacksonville and really get out of the backfield catching the ball and, had some really good years. I don't know if he ever got a big contract or not, but it seems like after these guys get that one big contract, they kind of just shut it down, it seems like.
There's so many young, hungry running backs. It's hard to beat them out, and keep running. You notice that Mark Ingram is just, he didn't even play the last half of the season. So, but Mark Ingram, he will have ended up with like a 10-year NFL career, which is exceptional for a running back.
Well, you talk about Mr. Football in Alabama. In Troy University, aren't we getting one?
Yeah, we got Daniel Webb, the kid out of
he'll be playing for us next year.
Transferred in from Florida State.
Right. Hey, I was going to go back to the Don Jacobs coming to Houston Academy. Let me just read the places he's coached at. Of course, he was at Troy University for a long time.
10 years.
Alabama A&M, West Georgia, Louisiana Lafayette, West Alabama, Jacksonville State. He coached at Luverne, Robertsdale, Central of Coosa, Aniana, and he won a state championship in Aniana. He was there 3 straight years in a row. Third time it was a charm. He defeated Charles Henderson, and Mike Dean was the head coach at Charles Henderson at the time. Richard McBride was on that team. John Johnson was on the team for Charles Henderson. Then he coached at Elkmont, and then he's been at his alma mater, Scottsboro, for about 4 years, but he's retiring as of 1 February. The article I read, and he'll be going to Houston Academy, where Eddie Brundage now is the head coach, taking over longtime coach Jamie Riggs, who was at T.R. Miller and at Houston Academy. And Coach Jacobs is about 62 years of age, so I was going to throw that out as well. And
his wife's from the Enterprise area. I think that's where they're trying to get closer for folks.
Yeah, I remember Don Jacobs well. He was the backup to Stedman Shealy, and then he was the starter for most of his senior year. He had a bad knee injury that he had that slowed him down his last years. For a while there, it seemed like every Alabama quarterback had a knee injury, including Stedman Shealy and Jack O'Rear, and it's just and when you're a wishbone quarterback, that's tough to overcome.
You just never know.
So Jacobs is famous for the fumble against Mississippi State. Wasn't that a heartbreaking loss?
I'll tell you, Alabama lost. They had a 28-game winning streak. Went to Mississippi State, which had a pretty good team, and was losing, I think, 6-3. But they got all the way down to the goal line, and the play came down to one play, and he was hit or something, and he fumbled right at the goal line. So that was a huge upset when Mississippi State beat Alabama. But it's like most losses that Coach Bryant had, they might lose, but they were right in the game until the last minute. But what else I remember about that game and season, that was 1980. I was a sophomore on the Charles Henderson State Championship team. That team finished undefeated. So through 8 or 9 games, Charles Henderson was undefeated. Through 8 games, Troy University was undefeated. With Willie Tullis as the quarterback. They ended up losing 2 close games to North Alabama and Jack State, the last 2 games of the year. But Troy University was undefeated, and then Alabama was undefeated through 8 games. So all the 3 teams that I cared most about, Charles Henderson, Alabama, and Troy University, through 8 games were all undefeated in 1980.
Let me ask you this. Do y'all remember, or did I dream this, on Thanksgiving Day, Willie Tullis returned a kickoff for a touchdown on Thanksgiving Day in the National Football League?
Yeah, Dad always told me he returned one on Monday Night Football.
It was one of the 2.
And he returned the kickoff.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember that.
He said Cosell was talking about Troy.
Howard Cosell for ABC Sports.
Hey, Willie Tullis was
Headland, Alabama.
He might be the best athlete that's played offensive football at Troy University. I would watch him in practice, and they wouldn't let the defense tackle him. They were just supposed to touch him, but nobody could touch him. Nobody could even 2-man tag him. And he could throw it really well, too.
Right, and
they had the other guy that played for Bradshaw. What was it? That was part of the what was the famous
Smurfs?
Redskin.
Virgil C.
Or C, yeah, he was great.
S-E-A-Y, Virgil C.
Yeah, he was. They had that team I just referenced, that was that 1980 team, was fantastic. And then they lost to two good North Alabama and Jack State game, but they were both real competitive games. And then it was the next year that the wheels fell off. That's when you had the front porch incident when Coach Bryant kicked off about 9 starters for some kind of incident that happened at the front porch, and that was just started the downfall.
Not Coach Bryant, but Coach Bradshaw.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Coach Bradshaw. And then that led the way to Ken Gailey was on that staff, and then he was named head coach and turned it around in a hurry. But one reason he turned it around is Coach Bradshaw had left him a lot of good players. And then all the good young players, he had to play a ton of young players, the rest of that season because he kicked off the team, all his starters. So I think 2 years after Gailey was hired, Troy won that national championship.
Yeah, well, you helped us. You had Kerry Christensen, and then you had Turk. Then they had a great running back out of Elba, Forstead. But Gailey always had really good offensive line. Running that wishbone. You had Jay Jeffco. I can't remember if Jay Jeffco was on this staff the whole time, or was he on the '84 championship team and then Jeffco left, or was Jeffco on the '84 and '87? Was he with Rhodes?
Ooh, I think he was. He left from Charles Henderson after winning the state championship, and I think he left after my senior year. He coached 2 more years after that state championship team, and then he went back to Troy University and coached the offensive line to that national championship team you just talked about.
Yeah, you had the great Willie Slater. Willie Slater was on that staff as well. I mean, you had Rick Rhodes. I mean, you had so many great coaches. Robert Maddox was on that staff. Johnny Williams was on, I think, the '87 staff.
One of the offensive linemen on that '84 team was Joey Dennison, who was a star lineman on that state championship team at Charles Henderson. And he signed a scholarship, I want to say, with North Alabama or Jack State, and went up there for a year or two. But then he transferred back to Troy and ended up being a starter with Willie Collins. Joey Dennison and Willie Collins were both key players on that national championship team.
Was Randy Wilkes from Goshen an offensive lineman? Randy Wilkes?
I think he was later.
Okay.
Yeah, he might have been on the '87.
Yeah. Hey,
Dad and I, Mr. Crow, my granddad, and my older sister Rebecca, we got in Pawpaw. I don't know if he was driving a Buick. I don't know. He had a Buick dealership, so he probably was a big Buick fan. But we got in a Buick and we left Crow Hill, and I'll never forget Dad saying once we got towards Houston, like, look at the lights off in the distance. Like, you could start seeing the city for miles and miles away because all you're seeing were oil wells. And I'll never forget driving all the way from Callan, Texas, which was right on the Mexico border, and going into Mexico and all the Troy fans throughout Mexico, and just coming back for that amazing, crazy Ted Clem kick. But I was eight years old when all that happened. I still remember it to this day.
Michael, speaking of sweet people, Miss Glenda Locklear, who just passed away, in her obituary I read where her, they've traveled, her and Mr. Wiley went to ball games, and her favorite memory was that win in that national championship game in McAllen, Texas, was her favorite memory of Troy athletics. And real wonderful.
Huge Troy supporters, no doubt.
I've been thinking a lot about just how grateful I am that this football season got played, because the whole nation needed a distraction, especially if you're a football fan. But think of all the priceless memories fans have that are associated to sports. And it doesn't have to be the players. It can be the fans, like Miss Locklear, that will always remember that trip. And I was talking to my wife last night. You remember the picture story about the young man that's battling cancer that's a huge Alabama fan, and Najee Harris took an interest in him and has contacted him and offered support, and so has Coach Saban. But just how much does that mean to that young man, that little child, and his parents, that he's battling this terrible disease, but he has this, to take his mind off of it.
Well, there was a girl in a near fatal car accident that Zach Jones found out on Facebook, and he went to see her in the hospital. There was a story on that as well, but it's just.
Yeah, well, think about locally with Coach Riddle and Coach Gailey and Coach Rhodes and everybody did for years for Troy Morgan. Kid from Montgomery. And him and his family came to every game.
Sports is a big deal, and so when people, I'm really thinking of one columnist at AL.com that just constantly wrote columns saying that we should cancel the season. And I'm saying, you realize what you're going to do to, just the effect that would have on millions of people. The athletes want to play, but then the fans that have put so much value on these games, the young kids. So I'm glad that the powers that be did not listen to people like him.
Well, we go into Troy football. Sheldon Sanders, a Charles Henson graduate, he has some responsibilities at the Troy Athletic Department, and he's, a local kid who's doing his best, and so Troy is offered him an opportunity to be a part of their program, and he was a part of the program at Charles Henson for years. I can remember Timothy Porter years ago with Coach Fountain and some of those guys. Timothy lost both of his legs to some rare disease, and he has since passed away. But football and athletics can offer a whole lot of rewarding experiences for people, be it in basketball where you allow somebody to score or utilize them as a manager, and there's all kind of movies that's been made, how it touches those kids' lives, but more importantly, it touches the lives of the people that they're part of.
Right, right.
And that's the most rewarding part is the people.
We all remember last year the inspirational story of the young man from Purdue, the student at Purdue that was battling terrible cancer, and how he pulled for Purdue and became really a part of the team and inspiration for that team. That had maybe that was 2 years ago.
I think his name was Jake Strong or something like that. They started with I guess all the ESPN folks got involved. Or Tyler Strong, I can't remember his name.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take another break here this morning. We'd like to thank you for joining us. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Thank you.
Our history is woven with the stories of those we serve. At Max, we've been a good community partner for 65 years. Max is dedicated to providing dependable financial services and to supporting our communities. We volunteer our time and share our resources. As a credit union, we've returned millions of dollars back to our members, local nonprofits, and small businesses. Max is honored to be a part of your story. We look forward to serving you for years to come.
Hi, Sandy. I'm right here. Come on in.
Baby, I'm right here. Miss Mary, I'm right here. I'm right here.
Since 1969, we've been right here because at Troy Regional Medical Center, we take these words to heart.
I'm right here. Thank you.
Remarkable people, remarkable care.
Trojan Auto Parts of Troy, home of Napa know-how. Stop by and see owners Mike and Melissa Kilcrease and their Napa know-how team with over 100 years of combined experience. We're the only locally owned parts store in Pike County, and we're fully stocked and ready to serve you. We pride ourselves on being your go-to parts store, not only for the simple items, but we specialize in those hard-to-find items as well. Trojan Auto Parts, the right part at the right price at the right time. Napa, a name you've trusted here in Troy since 1945.
At the Piggly Wiggly, we proudly support our local farmers and bring you the best they have to offer, all at cost plus 10%. When you shop local, you reinvest in your community. Remember, buy local, shop local. Piggly Wiggly, local since forever.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Today in LA. I'm Forrest Lee, and on the phone I have Michael Amos, and he's calling in from Grayton Beach, Florida, and Bill Rice is calling in from the other side of Troy, Alabama. And again, our thoughts And prayers are for Big Mike as he recovers. He and Miss Carol, they're home, resting and trying to get a little bit stronger. But thank you for joining us. And
yeah, who knows? Big Mike might be watching us as we speak, so I would imagine he probably is up and at him already this morning.
Yeah, getting stronger every day.
So can't wait to see him again. Talking about why I'm at home, a lot of viewers will be interested in this. Troy City Schools has gone to virtual learning for the 9 days because of COVID. But it's different than it was last time. When they came back in August, there were some students in class and some at home, but the learning they were doing was not really virtual Zoom teaching. This time it is going to be. So my wife is a high school teacher at Charles Henderson. She will be teaching her classes with Zoom, like Michael's on the air. And so she'll have to go to school and will be in her classroom interacting with her students via her laptop computer. But that's why I'm at home. She has a work day today to get ready for that. But all my 5-year-old and 9-year-old they'll be out of school through next Friday. Mm-hmm. And the 5-year-old doesn't have to do any virtual learning, but Maggie is going to have to log in at 8:30 tomorrow morning and have her third grade lessons on the computer.
So is athletics totally down? Do we know?
I do not know the answer to that question. I know Charles Henderson is scheduled to play in Andalusia today. Pike Liberal Arts is still going strong. I believe their next game is going to be at home against Fort Dale. I'm not sure about Pike County and Goshen and those schools. Pike County schools are virtual as well until they're scheduled to go back the 1st of February. But that will be evaluated the last week of January, depending upon how the COVID cases are taking place in Pike County. So it's that I don't know. You can call the local high schools and find out the answer to that question, or the Board of Education. But
on the COVID front, and in my research yesterday, I saw something eye-opening. You can go to alabamareporter.com, and they have a lot of good dashboards with COVID information. And one of the metrics I looked at is the percentage of people that are getting the tests that are testing positive. And in most counties, it seems to be about 30 to 45% of the people that get a test are testing positive. That's a huge ratio compared to past months.
Well, didn't Vanderbilt suspend women's basketball for the rest of the year? I know Duke has, but I heard that report. I believe it was on Paul Feinbaum or something.
Yeah, they did.
Some big colleges are the rest of the year.
The uniforms and just opted out. The whole team is Vanderbilt women's basketball is over.
Yeah. Well, locally in women's basketball at Troy University.
Tell me this though, as far as all the left on their schedule in the SEC, is that just forfeited win?
I would think that's what you would have to do, but I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know either.
Everybody needs as many wins as they possibly can to make NCAA tournaments. I wonder how they're going to do that.
And that's still going to be virtual, correct? Isn't that going to be virtual in Indianapolis, or isn't that where the men are?
Every team will be going to Indianapolis and playing like in a bubble, kind of like what the NBA did.
Where are the women going?
I'm not sure. I don't know if the women will be up there as well, or how they're going to do that.
Well, our Troy women won both games this past weekend. They defeated Georgia Southern 87-70 on Friday, and they defeated Georgia Southern again 82-69. They're 7-4 overall, 3-1 in the conference. And this weekend on Friday at 6 o'clock, they'll host Coastal Carolina, and Troy women will also host Coastal Carolina Saturday at 4 o'clock. Now, the men are struggling for injuries and things of that nature. They lost twice this past weekend to Georgia Southern. They lost in overtime Friday night 67-64. And then on Saturday, they lost 63-56. And they will travel to Coastal Carolina this Friday and play at 5 o'clock and Saturday at 2 p.m. And the Troy men are 6 and 7 overall, 1 and 3 in the conference. So hopefully they'll be able to bounce back pretty soon.
A brutal schedule of road games. They're supposed to play at home against Georgia State, and Georgia State had COVID issues and couldn't come to Troy and play, so now Troy has to go on the road again. Of course, Cliff Ellis, the former Auburn coach, South Alabama coach, Clemson coach, I think he's won over 700 games, is still coaching at Coastal Carolina. So pretty amazing, the career of Cliff Ellis.
I imagine that'd be a nice place to coach at too. When you're off season, you probably play a round of golf early in the morning, and off season. And
yeah, I mean that Coastal Carolina program. I mean, baseball, of course, wins it all. I mean, wins the World Series. I can't remember who they beat. Maybe Arizona. Wins the College World Series. And now the football team's done. I mean, an amazing job. I mean, we're undefeated until they lost Liberty in the bowl game, and then basketball's been pretty good under Ellis.
Yeah, Dustin Johnson.
I've always maintained that the Troy sports program that could make the biggest national splash would be its baseball program. I mean, just if you could just get a super group of guys, and then 2 pitchers is all it takes in baseball. 2 dominating pitchers.
Right.
It's not inconceivable that Troy could get on a run and make it to the College World Series. And once you make it to the College World Series, anything can happen.
Who knows?
And the closest they ever came was in Tuscaloosa, win that Saturday game, and then basically, you had to get beat twice on Sunday. And they had their great pitcher Felix, and I think he went into the 7th or 8th inning, and Alabama's catcher got up there and just hit a little chopper up the middle, and it got through, and Alabama won, I think, in the 9th inning, 4-3 or 3-2, and I was at that game, and that's the closest Troy's ever gotten to, having to get to being the team to beat on Sunday, but that's just never happened.
It'll happen one day, especially with Troy's baseball tradition. I remember when I was sports editor when Troy went Division I. Mr. Beard was instrumental in making that happen, and I remember writing that Troy they'll beat big time football programs that nobody thinks they can beat, and I remember writing that then Troy will make it to the big dance in college basketball, which they've done twice, I believe.
Go ahead, Bill.
And well, in basketball, you could really, if you had a team that, you're not going to have the stars that the big teams have, but you could have a team that stuck together for 4 years and had great chemistry, and you could get hot and have 1 or 2 good games and make it to the Sweet 16, even in basketball, I think.
Well, I went to Troy University the other day to get the baseball and softball schedule. Well, they haven't printed them, and they said that they may not print them because it's going to be subject to change. But baseball season and softball season will start about the second week in February, and what is that? Less than a month away, less than about 3 weeks away. The first pitch will be thrown, and I know the women have a tournament like the 12th of February. So time's a ticking, and we hope they can play and have a normal season.
I was looking, I was driving off Crow Hill yesterday, and I looked up off Elm Street. Looks like they have a sidewalk coming from the tennis courts to the softball fields they're building right there on that left side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that sidewalk. They're always doing something at Troy University to beautify the campus, and that sidewalk's going to let people take a nice scenic stroll from really Sorority Hill all the way down to corner of your street, your mom and dad's street, Crow Hill.
Yeah.
And the lagoon is, they got the lagoon is get cleaned up, and it's got that big old sidewalk from there all the way to the old Stewart Dining Hall, where the art department's located now, or the art.
What about Troy University? Are they back?
Yes, they are back, and I have not heard of any restrictions. I think they're still doing the same. Some of you spend part of the time in the classroom, part of the time online, and vice versa. But they're back. There's no shutdown at this time that I've heard of.
I want to mention this. Yesterday, I've been hearing about a chicken sandwich for a long time called Popeyes. Of course, we have Popeyes in Troy, and apparently they had come up with a chicken sandwich that was supposed to be better than Chick-fil-A.
It's good.
It's supposed to be the best chicken sandwich ever. And I happened to grab one yesterday in Troy for the first time, and I'll go ahead and say live on television right now, that's the best chicken sandwich I've ever had in my life.
It was.
I had to wait 6 minutes for it, and it's like $3.99, and I might have bought two. I don't want to say, but probably I did. And I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I've had chicken sandwiches everywhere. I'm a huge chicken sandwich guy, and that is unbelievable at Popeyes.
Well,
I mean, if they want to be a sponsor on Today in LA, let me know. Anybody that works there today watching this show, we'd love for y'all to be a sponsor because I'd love to eat more of your chicken sandwiches.
Well, Steve Kemp and I were talking food this morning, and the subject of chicken came up, and he said Popeyes. He said, I like a little bit of spice in it. So,
I mean, that was a huge sandwich.
Yes, it's monster.
I'm like you, Mike. I've never had it, but I've been hearing the same thing. Popeyes, I think that chicken sandwich just turned that franchise around, and it is famous. It's got a cult following, and it is good. But chicken sandwiches are huge in the fast food restaurant business, probably because of Popeyes. It just has done all this increase in business because of their great chicken sandwich.
I had a
Chick-fil-A had always been my go-to, but I mean, anywhere now that I see a Popeyes down here, I'll definitely stop. And I'll tell you what, one word of advice when you're eating a Popeyes chicken sandwich that just came out.
take your nice shirt off.
Stop your car and enjoy it, because I was eating it. I look at my white button-down shirt, and I am just covered with the chicken sandwich.
Have your work shirt on.
But it was really, really good. I want to just give Popeyes some props on that this morning.
Let me tell you a funny story. I was coaching in Manchester, Georgia. I was teaching physical education at Manchester Middle School, and I was coaching basketball, and I had to carry this kid home one day. His name was Tavares Middlebrooks. And for a middle school kid, he was about 6'2", about 185, big old boy. I said, Tavares, are you hungry? Would you like something to eat? He said, Coach. He said, I sure would love to taste one of them Mac rib sandwiches. It never happened, so we went to McDonald's and got him a Mac rib sandwich. He said, I would love to taste one of those.
That brings to mind another story. We're talking about the importance of sports earlier. Think about all the people like Coach Forrest Lee that are mentors and do these little acts of kindness for their players. And so, when you cancel sports and extracurricular programs, those kids don't have an opportunity to have someone take them home and get them a McRib sandwich.
Well, let me just share something with you since you mentioned that. Probably the thing I missed the most is the relationships you have with your kids in physical education and in football. But in football, you can go the extra mile. When I took a job in LaGrange, Georgia at Whitesville Road Middle School, I asked the players would they like to help me Saturday morning. So at that time I had a convertible, and I drove to West Point, Alabama, and picked up about 5 or 6 kids, and there we are with the top down, driving to LaGrange, Georgia, about a 10-minute drive, and we stop at a restaurant, and we order a biscuit and something to drink. And I said, guys, what you're supposed to do before you eat is say the blessing. So I said the blessing. And so we go to the gym, clean up the gym, and I take them to my house. And I did more work in one day in my house, in my yard, than I could do in 2 months with those kids. So after that, we come back to the same restaurant and we get lunch. And we're getting ready to start. And one of the boys said, Coach, can I say the blessing? I said, sure. So and then I gave them a little bit of money, and I've got pictures of them sitting on my couch in the yard working, but those kind of things, and that's just a small thing. But there's coaches all over this Pike County at every high school in this county that are doing the same thing that you don't read about.
They're going to pick up the kids in the morning, and they're taking them home after practice, and we don't know about it.
Your basketball coaches, your golf coaches, all that. And I'll say this, when I was a little boy, Daddy was in the VA hospital in Tuskegee, and when I was unable to be a regular dad. And when it come to sports, I can name off every baseball coach or football coach that I had growing up. And it was like I was just mesmerized by them. And the number one guy was Whitey Whitman, that came to Goshen for 2 years when I was a 9th and 10th grader. And he was phenomenal, starting the physical education program, but he was a walking, talking. He was you could tell he was a Christian man with what he said and how he did things and how he approached things. And he was one of the ones that electrified my soul, was Whitey Whitman. And another person was Virginia Watson on the women's side, that I had her in physical education classes. And that's a tribute to Miss Virginia and Kevin. And
well, teachers can have that impact, but the ones that can have it even more is the coaches, because they spend so much more time around the kids, and it's kind of a more intimate, intense setting. But the impact the head coaches and assistant coaches have on children is just vast. That's one reason I've just been so adamant that we need to keep school going on as normal as possible and keep the extracurricular activities. And I'm not just talking about sports. I'm talking about band and debate and et cetera, because the children need it, and it provides such great lessons and role models for these kids.
My big concern on this is always the meals. A lot of these families and kids don't have meals. They depend on the breakfast and lunches at the school, to be able to eat during the day as well. So, that always bothers me when stuff like this is happening as well.
Yeah, there's a program I know at the elementary school. It's called Backpack Buddies, where every Friday, very discreetly, there's a food closet at the elementary school that local men and women and churches donate to, and the kids can load up their book bag with, stuff to get them by for the weekend. But, breakfast and lunch, even when I was at Goshen, we didn't have breakfast, but with lunch, man, I was looking forward to that lunch. And, but breakfast and lunch are two big meals that the kids are able to get. And I know some school systems are in a federal program where it's free to all students, not just the ones who are on the low income of the of things, but
I would say that in Troy City schools, you probably have at least 60% of the students that are on free or reduced lunch program.
It's probably higher.
Higher, so let's say 70%. That's a lot of students that are getting that. Two good warm meals.
Well, you got about 1,000 kids at the pre-K through 6th grade at Hank Jones, up there at the elementary school. All right, there's probably your 7th and 8th graders at the middle school. There's probably 260 to 280 kids at that school. And then at the high school, you're probably looking at a good 400 or so. So you add all those up, that's a lot of.
And Pike County schools would be the same way. It's also kind of scary when you think about it, because it wasn't that way when I was in high school and elementary school in the 80s and 70s. The percentage of people qualifying for a free or reduced lunch. So that tells you that the economy is it might be doing well for the 1%, the 5%, and the 10%, but the bottom 50 or 60 or 70%, it seems to me, is growing through the years.
Let's take Pike County for an example. Troy City schools, if they had a food program, it'd be easy to get those elementary kids, all those students, maybe a meal. Brundage, probably not too bad, but the kids say at Goshen's kids are scattered like throwing a firecracker in an ant bed. I mean, they're everywhere. And to get food to the kids up there in North Pike County, or even for the Brundage kids, I mean, those kids are out of pocket, and it would be hard to get them, you know, a meal. I don't know exactly how they do that.
We're running out of time today, but I would be interested in getting the breakdown of where Goshen gets their kids from, where Pike County gets their kids from. You know, I'll be interested to hear that one day. Like, what's the cutoff area?
What's the jurisdiction?
You know, where these kids go to school.
Right. Well,
there's 3 schools. It's Banks, Brundage, which is Pike County, and then Goshen. So yeah.
I mean, all the Banks kids I would assume after 9th grade would go to Pike County High School.
I believe that's correct. Yeah. It's about 8:29. I'm gonna say.
Great show today. I appreciate Forrest Lee being in the studio. Bill Rice calling in from his home, and of course, we want to thank everybody, all our sponsors today. Go see Pat and Geraldine at Sister's Restaurant, Pat Hook's Barbecue while I was home, and man, it's wonderful. Those ribs are incredible. I want to say hello to Andy Falk. Saw him yesterday. Dear friend of mine, PS Falk Furniture in Enterprise. Go visit Andy in his amazing store down there. But Forrest, I'll let you wrap it up.
I want to thank y'all for joining us today, and continued prayers and recovery for Mr. Mike, and good luck to Miss Carol, and you take care of yourself too. And again, thank you for joining us on Today in LA.